Hi guys, Julia here from JM2 Vintage. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I am here with something a little bit different. So we're all resellers here, and most resellers know at least a little bit about BOLO brands. If you are brand new to the reselling world and you keep hearing this term BOLO, if you don't know what that means be on the lookout. These are brands that are hot. If you find them, you pick them up. Chances are you're going to get a pretty quick sale and a pretty good sale out of them. That's a BOLO brand. And there are lots of BOLO brands out there, countless BOLO brands out there. And there are a lot of BOLO brands that most people know, but there are infinitely more small niche brands hiding in plain sight, and like quite literally in some of these cases. We'll get into that later. So today I'm going to break down 10 little known, hidden in plain sight BOLOs that you need to be on the lookout for to make sure that you're not leaving them and the profit they might bring you behind while you're outsourcing. But before we get started here, guys, if this is your first time here, if this is your first time stumbling on my channel, first and foremost, welcome. I am Julia. That is my name. We talk all things thrifting and vintage and the business of reselling on the internet here. If that sounds like something that you might be into, consider hitting subscribe down below. I would love to have you along on this journey. But without further ado, guys, we've got a lot to talk about here. So why don't you go grab your notebook, grab yourself a snack, grab yourself a drink. You know I've got my matcha latte. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the brands. Guys, before we get into the brands, I want to take a quick minute to thank Vendoo for sponsoring this video. Vendoo, for me, serves as a central hub of my business. It is not only my cross-lister that allows me to write my listings just once and cross-list it out to multiple different marketplaces, but it also serves as my inventory tracking system. So when I sell an item on a specific marketplace, it automatically delists it from any other marketplaces that I have it listed on. This all happens without me having to lift a finger or even think about it. It just happens. But it also handles all of my marketplace sharing and my offers to likers. It truly is the platform on which I run my entire business. So I'm happy to announce that Purple Friday is back. So for this weekend only, you can get 10% off of all yearly plans. So that's November 28th through the 30th, you take 10% off of the cost of what is already the best deal for Vendoo. With their yearly plans, you already get up to 2 months free and access to all of their Pro Tools at no additional cost. And now, for this weekend only, you get an additional 10% off. I could not run my business without Vendoo, and if you are thinking about starting to cross-list, I urge you to give Vendoo a try. And if you're already a Vendoo user and you love it, be sure to sign up for the annual plan this weekend and get your up to 2 months free and that additional 10% off. If you are interested in giving Vendoo a try, or you are interested in upgrading to the annual plan, click the link in the description down below to get started. I have said this before, I will say this again. If you have not tried Vendoo yet, you will wonder why you haven't done it sooner. So thanks again to Vendoo for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get into the brands. So when it comes to sourcing for reselling, there's a lot of different things that you can kind of base your selections off of. Brand, of course, being one of them, style cues being another one, ideally a combination of the two. That's what you're looking for. But there are tons of brands out there, and they might be quite niche, which is why you've probably never heard of them, that are a perfect combination of super high demand, super low supply, which is the ideal combination that every single reseller is looking for. So when it comes to these BOLO brands, there are brands that everybody knows. You know, Arc'teryx is a great BOLO brand. You should always be on the lookout for them. Zimmermann, most people know about Zimmermann. Most people know about Ulla Johnson at this point in terms of being highly desirable labels that people are looking for and resell fast and for a great price. You know, Johnny Was is another one. So let's break down 10 great brands, well, a few more than 10, that you and most other resellers out there are probably missing while you're outsourcing. Let's get into it. And we're going to start with Johnny Was. Most people know who Johnny Was is. Very distinguishable by the heavy embroidery. Most of their stuff is made out of cupro, so it's got that flowy silk-like textile, tunics, kimonos, all that kind of stuff. But did you know that Johnny Was also has multiple sub-brands that are just as desirable and in a lot of cases, a little bit less saturated than Johnny Was is on the market, which means that you might even be able to get a little bit more than you would for a Johnny Was mainline piece. Let's break down the sub-brands. So the first one we're going to talk about, and this is probably the most well-known in terms of the Johnny Was sub-brands, this is Beia, B-I-Y-A, and forgive me if I butcher any of these names. Beia or Beia, I learned it by reading. If you know the correct way of saying that, let us know in the comments down below. Anyway, Beia is very similar in feel. Like the customer for all of these different brands is very, very similar. But Beia, more so than like embroidery and embellishment, leans more on textiles and textures. The embroideries tend to feel a little bit less like vibrant like Johnny Was, and more towards like the tapestry type embroidery, a little bit heavier, a little bit darker. Beia retail tends to be a little bit more expensive than Johnny Was, probably because of the textiles. They are just a heavier, more expensive textile, and sell just as good, if not better, and if not faster on the secondhand market. So this is a label you absolutely need to be keeping your eyes out for. Next up, under the Johnny Was umbrella, is the 3J Workshop. 3J Workshop, to me, has a little bit more of like a folk Western spin to it. Still made with beautiful textiles, still done with that gorgeous embroidery, just more in that kind of Western folksy boho slant. 3J Workshop is mostly known for these beautiful like embroidered button-down shirts. They have a real cult following. They sell super fast and for a fantastic price. To me, like at least the pieces that I've found from 3J Workshop, they feel very easy to spot because they look like somebody took a regular just button-down shirt and practiced embroidery over it. That's always been the vibe that they give me. Next up, and this brand is one of the ones that I say are like literally hiding in plain sight because a lot of times the tag is almost undecipherable with Pete and Greta. Years ago, I found this like very oversized, lightweight linen knit cardigan, and I picked it up because it was a linen cardigan, and I didn't even realize that it was Pete and Greta because you could barely see the label. I mean, like I had to literally take a picture and zoom in. That's how faint the actual label was. So Pete and Greta is a little bit more of like an outdoorsy vibe, right? This is a little bit more utilitarian, a little bit more, I'm gonna wear this for a hike and then for cocktails after the hike at the lodge, right? So you'll see a lot of like utility jackets from Pete and Greta, kind of cargo pants, more basic sweaters, but always with this through line of a really like worn in fabric, right? Like nothing is ever gonna feel stiff and new. It's gonna feel immediately broken in. And finally, under the Johnny Was label, there is For Love and Liberty. And this is one of those labels that if you are in any way looking for like texture, you're gonna spot For Love and Liberty, but you might not know exactly how in demand that is. This is not to be confused with the boutique line Liberty Love, which I think a lot of people confuse it with. I mean, if you hold the pieces side by side, it's no question that you would guess which one is the high-end piece, but you know, if you're just strictly like busting through racks and grabbing things and you see Liberty Love, just know that it is not the same as For Love and Liberty. But For Love and Liberty is a little bit more romantic, whimsical, a lot more like muted neutrals, a lot of like sheers, a lot of lace work, a lot of embellishment on lace. It's really like flowy and feminine with a little bit of whimsy thrown in. It's like less about embroidery and more about textiles and silhouette, right? So that's kind of where For Love and Liberty lives. But absolutely keep your eyes out for it. Any piece I have ever found, and I have not found too many, but any piece I have ever found from For Love and Liberty has sold super, super quickly and for an incredible price. I'm talking in like the $80, $100, $120 range. All right, next up, we are going to talk about one that is so easy to miss. Number one, the label is kind of hard to read. And number two, literally the pieces are so small, especially if you're digging through the bins. Like it is so easy to miss this. The key here is to being able to feel the textile. And we are talking about negative underwear. Now, I know a lot of people are going to hear underwear and they're not going to have any of it, but you don't have to touch the underwear in this brand. A lot of the stuff that is the most in demand from Negative Underwear is their loungewear. Their whipped fabric, which is like a super soft micro modal ribbed. I mean, it just feels like an absolute dream. It's super floppy, super kind of like, I don't want to say flimsy, but it feels really lightweight. People absolutely love it. It has a cult following. Their sieve fabric, if you do bras and bralettes and stuff like that, is like a really nice power mesh that is very distinct. Again, both of these fabrics, once you feel them the first time, it's going to be super, super easy for you to spot them again because it's a very distinctive feeling fabric. But every time I have ever found a piece from Negative Underwear, it has sold in like 1 or 2 days. In fact, I have one that I am sending out today that was listed for, I think, 2 days before it sold. It might be just 1 day, but even in that time frame, it had a ton of interest. And if you've never gotten your hands on it, the next time you're in a Nordstrom, I know you can buy Negative on Nordstrom's website. I'm pretty sure in some of the bigger stores, they stock it in store. So the next time you're there, if you've never gotten your hands on it, pop over to the lingerie section and see if you can get your hands on it. Because again, once you feel it, it's so easy to spot. Negative is a great BOLO brand and guaranteed one that tons of resellers miss. So next up, we are going to talk about Linia. So this is a New York-based line, but it is very French-inspired. And as the name would suggest, it is built around the line. La Linia literally means the line in French. So they're known for their really luxe knitwear, for their classic tailoring, and elevated closet staple type pieces. Most in demand from La Linia is their sweaters for obvious reasons. They are very classic. They're beautifully made. Again, if you are somebody who is out there like looking for quality and you don't know this label, you would still probably pick up these sweaters because they feel like an absolute dream. I've found 2 or 3 of them, none of them in my size, and I can guarantee you if I found one that was in my size, you would have to pry it out of my cold, dead hands. This is one of my personal thrift bucket list pieces for myself, but I have been lucky enough to find a few in the wild and get them rehomed. I mean, at least we're getting them out of the waste stream, right? But this is the kind of label where pretty much everything is quiet luxury, old money feeling. And these are truly like lifetime purchase sweaters, right? So keep your eyes out for them. Resale, especially on those sweaters, is super high. And this kind of leans into a little tip in terms of figuring out new BOLOs. Target did a collaboration with La Linia a few years ago, and it very much had the look, and obviously the pieces were nowhere near the quality. Like, this is a label that's a lot more about quality than it is about design aesthetic, right? Like, a lot of the stuff that they're doing is very classic and has done before. They are just elevating the construction of it. But keep your eyes on those Target collaborations. Target tends to do these collaborations with really hot brands, really hot labels that tend to be very, very expensive and kind of make them accessible, at least in looks, to the Target audience, right? So if a company like Target has taken notice of this brand, you should probably take notice of this brand. There's a little bit of a double-edged sword with the Target collaborations, though, because they tend to be mass-produced and something like La Linia is not necessarily a mass-produced product. They can kind of flood the market with dupes. So after the fact, being done in a collaboration, just make sure you're taking good like brand label photos and contents photos so people know that when you're asking, $200 for a La Linia sweater, that they're not getting the Target version that shouldn't be $200. But this is a great one that flies under the radar. Again, if you are going by quality, you'll probably spot these, but keep your eyes out for this brand because their pieces are gorgeous, classic, and fetch a great price. Next up, this one is for the textile nerds. We're going to talk about Iniri, another brand that is often hidden in plain sight because this label is so tiny and hard to read. Most people over 40 would need to bust out their readers to understand what is on that label. That being said, these tend to be exquisite pieces, absolute, positive, living, breathing art to wear right here. These are always very delicate, very finely done, interesting construction, beautiful, unusual embroidery. I am somebody that always says if it's weird and well made, you should take a second look at least, and this is something that falls right into that category. They are highly collectible by people who really love slow fashion, who love art to wear, who love textiles. This is one of the more highly collectible brands that I've ever come across in the wild, and what an absolute treat it was to have come through my hands. I mean, I'm just like a nerd for this stuff, so this is, So keep your eyes out for Iniri. Let me know down below if you have ever had a piece. I just need to know like what you had, how fast it moved. Tell me about the details because again, I'm just a nerd about these things. These are all handmade one-of-a-kind pieces, right? So it's not like I can go online and like look at what you had, right? The last one that I had sold in about 2 or 3 days for, I think it was $350. So absolute positive bolo, rare, but again, it's not a label that people would notice. A lot of times the fabric feels really flimsy, so people will go right past it, despite the fact that it's a really high-end, fine fabric. Some people just mistake thin for cheap. And again, that label is so tiny, so a lot of people, if they're just blasting through, they won't even register that there is a label on that collar. So keep your eyes out for it. Absolutely, positively do not leave that behind. Even if there's a stain, it is worth the work of getting a stain out. It is worth the dry cleaning fee, whatever it is. Pick those dresses up. They are exceptionally rare and extremely sought after. So next up, we're going to talk about Dosa. And Dosa, in my head, it kind of gives me like Iniri's minimalist little sister, right? Very similar in terms of commitment to textiles, really beautiful cottons, beautiful construction. And again, another label that is so subtle. The newer labels are a little bit more substantial, but I have found Dosa pieces where this was the label. And I mean, if you were just flipping through a rack of button-down shirts and you saw this, you would go right past it. But absolutely, positively, be on the lookout for both the small ones and these larger, more significant size labels. So this is another slow fashion brand designed by Christina Kim. The pieces that she drops every year are limited in production. This is one of those brands that people will build capsule wardrobes out of. But a lot of the textiles are hand-woven, hand-dyed, and while they do have a minimalist aesthetic, in terms of construction, they tend to be quite complex. And because of all of that, again, hardcore cult following for their pieces. Anything from Dosa is going to be a good pickup. Again, they tend to be very rare, hard to find. They're hard to find retail, let alone hard to find on the secondhand market. So absolutely, if you see it, pick it up. I'm talking $50 and up for a shirt. Oftentimes they sell in a day or less. Like I said, this is a brand that is niche, but with very dedicated buyers. So keep your eyes out for Dosa. Next up here, we are going to talk about Alembika, which feels like a hard right turn from the minimalism and softness of Dosa right into these very vivid, printed, bold art to wear pieces. Alembika is known for their like mixed media, for their very sculptural shapes. They have a lot of like cocoon style dresses. This is the kind of art to wear for people who want to see and be seen, right? So every piece I have ever picked up from Alembika has sold super quickly. I'm talking under a week for very good prices, oftentimes over $100. It's another one of those brands that has a very dedicated following. The pieces, like pretty much everything else we're talking about today, tend to be limited in quantity, so demand runs high, especially if you can find plus size pieces in particular. This is kind of a thing for most higher end brands. Plus sizes do tend to bring a little bit more, but in Alembika, the demand is like noticeably higher for plus sizes. And when I say that in terms of a brand like Alembika, I mean like a plus size will sell in 1 day versus a week. So it's really like sixes when you look at it. But absolutely, positively, do not leave these pieces behind. They're not going to feel as like luxe as something like a Dosa or an Iniri will feel, which is all about those like hand-woven textiles, really high-end. You know, these can be polyester, mesh, but either way, do not leave it behind. Highly collectible, really high resale value, really fast sell through. So next up, we're going to talk about Henrik Vibskoff. And in my experience, Henrik Vibskoff and Alembika kind of coexist in the same neighborhood of a city, right? Lots of really interesting use of volume and architecture in the silhouettes. Lots of really playful use of prints and color. So Henrik Vibskoff can go like borderline avant-garde in terms of what he's making. Again, it's a brand that has really dedicated shoppers, people that really like love the aesthetic that comes comes out of this house. And every piece I've ever had from Henrik Vibskoff has sold super well, super fast, and for a great price for me. This is another designer that personally I have on my personal thrift bucket list. I've found a few pieces, none that have fit me, but someday one will come across my desk. But absolutely positively, if you see this, and honestly, if you're somebody who is already searching for weird and well-made, you'll probably catch these pieces before you even see the label, but absolutely positively feel comfortable paying up for it. I think the last piece I had was this black asymmetrical top with this really interesting play on volume, and it sold in like 2 days for $100. And I remember the person sending me a note when she went to buy it, really kind of begging me to consider her offer because she really, really, really wanted the shirt. And she was really only offering, I think, $20 off of what I was asking. So it was really sweet, but it just goes to show exactly how high the demand for his pieces are. So keep your eyes out for that label. Next up, we're going to talk a vintage bolo now, because bolos come in all shapes and colors, and there are absolutely specific vintage pieces that are fetching insane prices right now. And the one that we are going to talk about right now is the Canyon Group. And if you've been watching me for any amount of time, you already know that I have this robe on my personal thrift bucket list. It will be mine at some point. I do not want to pay $300 for it, though, to be absolutely honest, I would, because I wear my robes and I wear them until they fall apart, and I would 100% get $300 worth of wear out of that robe, but I would rather find it in the thrift. But anyway, these robes are chenille. They were really, really popular in the 90s, and you've probably seen them on a ton of TV shows, and I think that is why, certainly that's how I became aware of them. I think that's why people have such a strong nostalgia for them. And when I say that these are going fast and for a great price, I'm talking usually these sell in like 1 or 2 days for $200 to $300. So absolutely, again, don't sleep on sleepwear. Check every robe. Anytime I am in a thrift store, I do not leave until I check that sleepwear section. And one of these days, I'm going to walk over there and I'm going to see one of those stars sticking out on a sleeve, and I might cry openly in a Goodwill. And I will not be ashamed, because that will be one of my grails. But anyway, keep your eyes out for this label. Even the more simple Canyon Group pieces sell for a decent price, but in particular, these whimsical chenille, kind of nostalgic robes are selling for crazy prices. They are still making most of these patterns, so there's new ones coming out. But if you can find the true 90s vintage ones, money in the bank. Next up, we are going to talk about Deiji Studios. This brand holds another one of my thrift bucket list pieces. So Deiji is an Australian brand. They're known for their like architectural cuts, super luxe loungewear. They're really big into linen. Their linen is absolutely stunning. Overall minimalist aesthetic. Their linen robes, they're kind of a little bit kimono cut, are one of my bucket list items. I have found one in white and decided to sell it because I'm being very realistic about the fact that I don't wear white for a reason. So in particular, I am in the market for a black one. It will happen someday. But Deiji Studios, again, cult following, limited production, really high quality pieces, high retail price, high resale price. That robe that I had, I think sold in 2 or 3 days, and it sold for $150. So just another great bolo brand with limited supply, high demand, high resale rates, and something that is very simple and clean with a very unassuming label that a ton of people would miss if you don't know what you're looking for. So keep your eyes out for this. If you see it, grab it. It's absolutely worth paying up for. I doubt this is a brand that your local thrift store is going to jack up the price on, but they'll fly out of your closet for a great price. And finally, we're going to end on another vintage bolo that is something that I can see a lot of people passing over if they don't do this kind of thing, and that is Michael Simon sweaters. So Michael Simon was known for these heavily embellished, over-the-top whimsical sweaters. Think like applique, studs, beadwork, fringe, you name it, it's on these sweaters. There's a ton of holiday sweaters. Actually, I just recently had one and sold it very, very quickly. And one of you guys told me about how you thrifted a Disney Michael Simon sweater from 96. If memory serves me right, it was 96 or 97. And I looked it up, and the last one that sold for $900. Now, I am somebody who is always on the lookout for whimsical 90s sweaters. They do very, very well for me, and most brands are going to sell between like 20 and 40 bucks depending on what you've got. And for me, if I'm finding that at the bins, I'm all over those. They sell very, very fast for me. But Michael Simon in particular is highly collectible. And again, with some of those specific collaborations that he's done over time, prices go astronomical, as exhibited by the $900 Michael Simon Disney sweater. After she mentioned it, I went to look it up because I wanted to know what the 1996 Disney Michael Simon sweater looked like. And I think my eyes nearly popped out of my head when I saw that price. So just saying, Michael Simon vintage sweaters, absolute bolo. And guaranteed, if you find one, like, you are going to have eyes all over that very, very quickly. I think that there's a lot of people, like these collectors, I think that there's a lot of people that have like brand notifications set up for this. Because I remember when I listed this sweater that just sold, which is very like subdued for Michael Simon. It's still over the top and whimsical, but for what he does, this is very, very, very tame. I remember within just like minutes of me listing it, I had a lot of likes, and then it kind of died off, which tells me that people were getting these brand notifications. So absolutely, positively, keep your eyes out for them. I'm a big fan of those whimsical style sweaters to start with, so I'm always keeping my eyes out for them. They always catch my eyes as I'm flipping through the racks or in the bins. But yeah, if you spot yourself a Michael Simon sweater, you absolutely positively throw that into your cart so fast. Please do it for me, and do it for the collectors, and do it for your bottom line. But that is it, guys. I hope this has been helpful for you. I know that this was super fun for me. If you enjoyed this video, let me know. I think I'm gonna do a little series of these. Again, one of my goals as a YouTuber is to make sure that you guys aren't leaving profit behind and these highly desirable pieces behind in the waste stream. These are pieces that people want and are willing to pay high dollar for. So if you've ever found any of these brands, let me know what you found down below. What did you find? How did it do for you? How fast did it sell? What did you get for it? I love celebrating your wins and hearing your stories. But let me know if you liked it. As I was writing down this list, I have already a list of another like 10 or 15 more that I want to talk about, but I'm not talking your ear off for an hour and a half today. So look for the next video. But guys, I always appreciate you taking a little bit of your precious time to hang with me. I know we are all so busy, so it means the world to me that you choose to spend what time you have with me. But if you had fun, please consider leaving a like or a comment on this video. It really helps me out with YouTube. Of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. I would love to have you along on this journey. But without further ado, guys, I hope you have the most beautiful weekend. Happy hunting, and I will see you all in the next one.